Okay, hello and welcome everyone to our final How To Tuesday of the spring 2026 semester. Today we are joined by Tracy over at Central Bank. And so we are going to hear about financial literacy, about making smart money choices from her today. So with that, we are going to be recording this, and so the link will go out to all of the registrants. It'll be put on our website so you can see a recording of this webinar tomorrow when that link is made. So go ahead and take it away, Tracy.
Absolutely. And thank you again. And be sure to send me that link. Sometimes I like to go back and critique myself. Well, hello, everyone. And thank you again, Claire, for having me. I am Tracy Range. I am the director of a program called Prosper You. And I work for Central Bank of the Midwest. I am also a certified financial and credit counselor, and I have worked in the financial services industry for about 20 plus years. And really quickly, I'd be remiss if I didn't say a little bit about the Prosper You program. And so, Prosper You is our free financial education program that really allows us to contribute to the development of our communities. And our goal is to really just empower financial success that leads to financial wellness. And in order to really achieve financial wellness, we believe that that process is holistic and it takes a holistic approach that encompasses the various facets of money management, which includes your budgeting, your credit, your savings and investing, your asset building, even your retirement planning. And as you are working through those facets, you will notice that those components tend to interlock and interchange. Oftentimes, it is very hard to have one without the other, which really excites me about today's session. As you reminded me late last week, I was like, oh, okay, this is just going to be a combination of things. And so, with that being said, as we look at the agenda, here's what we're really going to cover. I pretty much prepared for us to just talk through what was advertised. So I prepared some topics around how we can make confident financial decisions specific to budgeting, credit, and debt. And then also being able to recognize trustworthy information in a world full of bad habits and advice. Which really is all good stuff and prevalent. So thank you for coming up with this topic, Claire. Given that this is a really short session, I know we only have a couple of participants, but I'd like to ask that you just kind of jot down your questions after each slide. And I'm just going to take 15 minutes or so just to run through the information in the slides. And then we can spend time at the end just answering your questions if you have any. Okay, and so with that said, we'll go ahead and keep it moving. Okay, so really quickly, not going to spend a ton of time about budgeting, but it's just embedded. It's one of those that interlock, interchange, and so I have to talk about it because it is our money map. And so, getting to a place of confidence with financial decisions isn't something that needs to be complex or really a hard journey. It's really about creating healthy budgeting habits that are habitual. Because when you think about habits, no matter what the habit is, we do them unconsciously. They become natural and effortless. So if you have a habit of doing something, it's just unconscious, right? And so that is something that we want to be able to do with budgeting. Because as I mentioned, budgeting is our money guide that interlocks with credit and with debt. And how? How does that happen? Because number one, we should not be using credit without having a budget, right? And because without a budget, we end up with insolvencies and we end up with debt. So it is super, super important to interlock those pieces. When we have a budget in place, it just simply means that we have a true account of our income and our expenses. That way, we know how much to spend and to keep our debt low. And so, This is budgeting allocation. Again, it doesn't have to be anything complex. However, it does require a little bit of discipline, a little bit of focus, and just proper allocation. My first tip is that we tie managing debt into a realistic budget, into our budget. That is being very realistic. For this allocation plan, I've allocated 15% towards debt in my budget. And this includes my student loans, but it's actually really unsecured debt. And so that would be like your, if you have any installment loans, not car, but unsecured debt, or credit cards, right? You definitely want to incorporate that into your budget. And that's going to take me right into credit, which is going to be my next topic. This is something that I preach and teach all the time. Credit used for your advantage empowers your financial success. Credit is not something that we should fear, but we should understand that it is a financial tool that can be used for our advantage when we manage it properly and when we use credit wisely. So, as part of the American culture, credit is a big part of our ecosystem, right? It directly impacts our livelihood. Low credit scores can negatively impact the type of housing we're able to obtain, our transportation. In some cases, it can interfere with the type of jobs that we get. And so, really, when you have low scores, it impacts those things negatively. But when you have high credit scores, it positively impacts those things and it empowers our financial success with less fees and better interest. Keep in mind, and I say this all the time, the wealthiest people use credit. Why? Because you're able to avoid liquidity, which helps you earn money on your money while using someone else's money. It's that simple. So I'm going to give you a quick example. Years ago, Toyota had some issues with some of their cars. And in order to people just stop buying their cars because they were accelerating, people couldn't stop. There were lawsuits. You can read about it. It was years ago. And to get back into the good graces of American consumers, they started to offer no interest financing on brand new cars for 5 years. And one of the qualifiers was that you had to have excellent credit or be within that excellent credit range. And so we qualified. We were within that range. And so we bought a brand new car at 0% interest for 5 years. And the advantage was that instead of paying $30,000 out of our pocket or pulling that out of our investments, we paid $500 a month, which allowed us to make money on our money versus liquidation or taking that big lump, making that big lump sum payment, so to speak. So that scenario alone, I can tell you, taught me the advantages that credit can bring towards your finances. So keep that in mind. So as we are continuing to talk about credit here for a minute, so that you can confidently navigate and use your credit, these are just a couple of points to consider so that credit can be for your advantage. So, number one, we want to take advantage of interest, right? So when we get opportunities not to pay interest, yeah, that is really what we want to do. This is really the only way for me. um I recently just bought a brand new stove, microwave, and dishwasher, and instead of paying $6,000 out of my pocket, I took advantage of no interest for 36 months, and I just scheduled an auto pay so that it evenly pays off. Another way to take advantage of the no interest is with our grace periods. And so I see this a lot with new credit users where we're not really fact checking what we're getting on a grace period. So it's very important to ensure that you're getting at least 25 to 30 days of a grace period on your credit cards, specifically, because this is what allows you to pay your balances in full each month to avoid interest. And so this is the best way to build credit and also avoid excessive debt. So that grace period is going to be very important. Annual fees on credit cards. It's important to go ahead and just seek cards with no annual fee. There's no need to pay an annual fee unless you're getting a perk out of it that you've assessed and it outweighs the benefit or the fee that you're paying. So, like for example, I have one card that has a fee. It's an American Express, but I get travel points and one free night a week to stay at a hotel. Like it outweighs the $100 that I pay, and I do travel. So that is for my advantage and to my benefit. So you definitely just want to make sure that you're weighing the cost. Oftentimes, don't be detoured if you're just starting to build credit, because sometimes when you're building credit, there may be a small annual fee. But typically, after your credit score starts to rise, you can contact your creditor and renegotiate that to say, hey, my credit score is in the 700s now. I don't need to pay these fees. I get offers all the time. I need, can you waive that fee? Otherwise, I may close this account, right? And so you'll have some options there. Um, Another thing to keep in mind is knowing the difference between introductory offers. Be sure that you understand what you're getting into, right? Because the rates can change, the fees can change, and this kind of leans into predatory lending, which is going to kind of be our last topic that we talk about. And then, credit ratings. Your goal is to build your credit, right? Through any means necessary. Anytime you're using credit, you have to think about what is this doing for my overall score? And there's lots of information out there for you to read and learn about. It is worth taking the time to understand factors that impact your credit score. Um, and then what else do I have on here? Understanding pre-approved versus pre-qualified. So pre-approved, you're approved. I see this all the time where, oh, I took advantage of it, and someone is really trying to build their credit and they're taking advantage of these offers, or they may get declined for an offer. So pre-approved, you are approved. So they have to offer you something if it says pre-approved. Pre-qualified means that you're still applying for the credit, so make sure you understand the difference between that, because if you're not quite ready and you're still building, you can get declined, and again, it just has an adverse impact to your credit score. Okay, so moving on, and this is going to be my last slide about credit. So, one thing that this is a great, I think, acronym to remember as you're choosing credit. This is an acronym that aligns with what a lot of lenders will actually use to assess your credit worthiness. But I'm telling you that you can use this to assess the credit worthiness of the credit that you're about to use. And or apply for, right? And so number one is ability. You're going to question, does this align with your goals, with your budget, and with your ability to pay back? So see how I threw that budget in. We got to make sure that the credit that we're applying for, it's going to align and it makes sense for what we're looking to do. Stability. Does the creditor have the brand, the reputation, and the ratings to actually support what it is that you're looking for? And when we talk about predatory lending, you'll learn a little bit more about what I'm saying there and why you need to assess that. Assets. If ask yourself if this is something if something, let me say it this way, if something were to happen, do you have the assets to cover the cost? Like, for example, I mentioned Nebraska Furniture Mart. Well, I typically keep my debt low and manageable, and I don't do a whole bunch of no interest plans. I know that I do them one at a time. And so once I pay this one off, then I know it's okay, because I know if something happened, I actually have $6,000 to pay that off. So you have to be very careful with those. You don't want to, get too many of them. But then also, if the asset, is part of the credit, will you have a return or have the equity in that particular asset. So that's something to question. And then performance. Will the credit align with your needs and your expectations? Is it helping you to actually build your credit if that is your goal? And some predatory credit offers, they don't even report to your credit bureau. So you have to, assess these types of things. Okay. And so moving on to debt, and this is really the only slide that I have on debt. The biggest tip that I have in building confidence with managing your debt is to keep a running list of your debt. Keep it, visual and accurate and up to date. Don't be afraid to face your debt because this is going to keep you realistic. I always recommend this format that's gonna, tell you what your debt is. This is like your unsecured debt typically. What is your balance? What is your interest rate? What's your minimum payment? And when is it due? And keep a running total of this. That way you can easily navigate and you can move things around if you're getting into a situation where you need to prioritize how you're going to pay off debt. If you're dealing with paying off debt, you can do the same thing with your student loans as well. It just gives you a visual. So that really is, it doesn't have to be anything fancy, but I always recommend keeping a running list so that you can easily incorporate into your budget and manage it. Okay, so for my last slide, because time is flying, we're already 16 minutes in. Um, let's talk a little bit about speak to being able to recognize trustworthy information that impacts our finances. This kind of aligns with that. And so predatory credit offers harmful, they're really harmful and they adversely impact our finances, so to speak. And so predatory lenders, let me just say this, they often justify their high interest rates and fees by citing, additional risk posed by the person borrowing the money. And this allows them to charge really unspeakable rates and fees. And so that being said, credit and your ability to repay is totally disregarded. Sometimes with these predatory lenders, payment history isn't even reported to your credit bureau, so it's not even really helping you to build credit. However, if you were to default, then the negative, payment history is then reported, right? So it does not help what you're looking to do. So keep that in mind and ensure, if you're and hopefully you won't have to go to a predatory lender. Um, Also, again, they're not concerned with your credit score whatsoever. The likeliness of a customer being able to pay back the debt based off all the interest and fees, it the likeliness of them defaulting is very, very high. And so again, their means to recover collateral is to charge you those higher rates. And then if it's involved with something like a buy here, pay here lot, which is like for auto loans, in that particular case, they also have an asset that they can compensate from you. So buy here, pay here, car lots are the worst. And so I have to ask you to avoid those if you can. These organizations are really sometimes depending on you to default. The expectations are, oh, if you're one day behind, they'll come and get the car, or a couple of days. It is just really, really tricky. In addition, the products that you're buying, like the car, the quality is really, really poor. And so it causes more financial hardships. Buy now, pay later. I'm seeing a lot of these, and I'm not going to name drop any of them because we're a financial institution. I don't want to get us into any trouble calling out our competition, but you have to be very careful. These kind of fall into those introductory offers that I mentioned earlier that can kind of get you locked in, and later you start to see higher fees and you see unnecessary debt accumulating because it's so easily accessible. Think about this. Typically, why would a person take advantage of buy now, later? For these individuals, is it because you do not have credit available to cover the cost of the funds on a suitable credit card, or do you not have the funds to pay for the item right now? Then that's questioning your budget, right? And so it falls into that predatory lending because they're not concerned about your ability to pay back. They understand the reason you're using this, you clearly may not have the funds or you may not have the good credit. And so it falls into that predatory lending. Payday loans is a cycle that is very, very hard to break. I understand things could happen, but it's a very hard cycle to break because the interest is 300% or higher. Um, so you want to avoid those, as well as title loans is my last one. Really, I've seen some with my credit counseling cases. By the time you pay back a title loan, you could have bought a whole nother car. And so it is definitely something to consider and to pause on. It is really, and so I end with saying it is really worth it to work on building your credit, so that if something does happen, you can get a suitable loan. I'd rather pay a little bit more interest because my credit score isn't the highest, but with a suitable and reputable organization that's a member of FDIC, and that has really, really high ratings, because then it's manageable, right? At some point, you'll get that paid off, with the interest that you have, and then you can start again, right? And so those are my tips for the day. And we got about 7 minutes, and so I will yield for questions.
Thank you, Tracy. That was awesome. I'm gonna go ahead and stop recording. Cancel. I don't know why this is so hard. Stop recording. There we go.
Okay.